Kazuto, you have the floor.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me again for this wonderful World Policy Conference. I think following what Vladislav has discussed, and I think following the Bertrand's proposition, that how do we describe the globalization of today, which is not the globalization as we know it. I think I propose the idea of this is a time of the geoeconomics. The geoeconomics means that I emphasize the word geo because the economy, the globalization, during the globalization, we assume that the economy transcends the geography. We are moving from one place to another without any, controls and lower the tariff, lower the regulations, the race to the bottom. There are countries which are competing to attract more investment, trade, and everything. And that was the sort of a driving force of the globalization. But today, the geoeconomics means that geographically defined spaces, such as the national jurisdiction, is becoming extremely important to protect their own people, culture, and the national well-being. So I think this concept of the return of geography or return of the geoeconomics is actually what happened in today's globalization. Today, I agree with Vladislav that the globalization is not over. The movement of trade, movement of capital is still going on, but there are a number of countries which are taking certain measures to be driven by the domestic concerns about the globalization or free trade is actually harming their economy and the society. And, this 2024 was an election year. There are about 70 elections all over, and most of the cases, the incumbents were losing the elections, largely because of the inflation and also the, dissatisfaction with the economic management. So free trade is becoming more and more as an enemy, and using tariffs and export control or any other means to restrict the trade is becoming as a fashionable means to weaponize the economy because we are trapped in the interdependency. Interdependency has been promoted during this during the time of the globalization. There are so much deeply engaged in many countries, including the United States and China. So decoupling is not realistic. And well, as Sebastian has mentioned, that the trade between blocs still goes on because we are trapped in the interdependence. But the contents of the interdependence is now changing. We cannot easily using this interdependence for the sake of the economic growth, but it is for the sake of the economic weaponization. So using this interdependence or the situation where the countries are trapped into the interdependence is now being giving a very fertile ground for the politicians such as Mr. Trump to use that as the tools to threat other countries because no country wants to be left out from the interdependence. If you are left out from the interdependence, then there will be a lot of pain that associate with. So the economic sanctions against Russia, for example, is one of the ways in which to decouple or to separate the Russian economy from the Western or rest of the world economy. But in fact, it is getting harder. Although the states are using the economic sanctions as a weapon to force against Russia to change its behavior against Ukraine. But at the same time, there are certain rooms are left. For example, Japan is still buying LNG from Russia, or the many other countries are buying oil and diamonds from Russia. So this is because this interdependence during the globalization is now creating a lot of pain for other countries to decouple. So often this, a situation of the interdependence can be used as both as a weapon, but at the same time as a safeguard of the globalization. But again, the globalization as we know it is no longer applicable because these, there is no willingness for any countries to deepen this interdependence and to create more vulnerabilities. So that's why the idea of the economic security comes into play. The economic security is usually defined as the way to reduce the dependency on another country and try to reduce the vulnerability on the others. So not to increase more dependency and to reduce the amount of the interdependence. And finally, even this situation, what is interesting is that Mr. Trump's policy to use tariff as the economic coercive measures, it is interesting that the movement of capital is not restricted. So, of course, there are sanctions against certain countries like Russia or North Korea or Iran, but still, most of the a movement of capital between Japan and the Western countries are still available for anybody. So if there is a tariff barriers, then you can overcome the tariff barriers by investing in the US jurisdiction. And I think this is now becoming a very interesting move because the tariff itself is no longer the measures of the protectionism, but it is the measure to invite the investment into the United States. So in conclusion, the globalization as we know it is over, but I think the globalization with the characteristics of the geoeconomic competition is starting now.
Thank you very much. So thank you for highlighting the duality of interdependence. I think it's an interesting way